Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Wil. We have a treat for you today. We're going to talk about an author whose work had made a big impact on me, and I think my co-host as well, Daniel Pink, in his book, Drive, where he talks about motivation, but it's motivation with a twist, not maybe how you would normally think about it. And really excited to dive deeper into this with all of you. But before we do, please be sure to subscribe to For the Win on your favorite platform. We're on all of them, including YouTube. And want to give a shout out to Nick Menard and nickmenard.com, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, The 1% Push Legacy, for sponsoring today's episode. Happy Monday, Nick.
Hello, winners.
What is up? So, you and I, we share a lot in common with our backgrounds. We, we're in banking, we were in insurance, we were in direct selling, we were in sales, we were in service, we've been entrepreneurs. And over that time, I think both you and I have probably gone through our own journeys about motivation, right? Like, I think motivation is something that is fleeting. It's not lasting unless you have that fire burning from within. And that's why you see people, they'll go to these conferences or whatever, and they'll get all jazzed up. But then as soon as they get out of that environment and the lights are off and it's time to get down to the gritty work, they kind of fade, right? And so, there's something about motivation. But with Daniel Pink, he talks about motivation in a very intriguing way, in a way that what ultimately he talks about is fostering intrinsic motivation, having that fire burn within that's sustainable to make you power through some of those different things and the elements of it. But I know you were exposed to his work a number of years ago as well. But any high level thoughts on Dan Pink and motivation? His book.
I think you did a perfect summary. I think it's very dangerous to rely on motivation only, because motivation comes and goes. You know how it goes. You get up in the morning, your motivation is there. You feel like, yeah, I'm going to tackle this day today. Then you receive one bad phone call. It's over. Motivation is in your socks. You don't want to do nothing anymore. A bad news. Motivation is out. Guess what? You have 10 cold call as a salesperson. You mentioned we were in sales before. We do cold call. No. You drilled, when you do sales properly, you drill to those no's. But you're like, Then the call number 10, you have a yes, a signature. You are the top of the world. You are so pumped, happy. The big issue with most people, when that call comes, when that sale close, they close the book because they're so happy. They want to have a margarita. They want to celebrate. All right. And we all about celebrating all the wins, and definitely small wins are so important. But when you reach momentum, the best way to keep it is during momentum. So the great salespeople, and it's not a sales episode, but it's just for you to understand. Right. The best one, when they have the yes, is when they want to pick up the phone directly, not do 100-page paperwork. The best thing is you close it, you have the signature, put everything that you need on the side, and pick up the phone and call the next one. Because that's your voice, your tone of voice will be different. Your belief system will be 100% in, and so it's gonna also have that same feeling with the people picking up the phone. This person is convinced by what he or she is selling. This person is 100% knowledgeable about this. Why? Because you just had a yes, and your motivation, your system is different. But that's what's hard and what is dangerous about motivation. If you only rely into that, you will not be able to sustain success. And the book is great because it shows you the way, the intrinsic, what you mentioned, motivation, and the way to get that when you need it. So really happy to talk about this.
Yeah. No, I love it. And you're right. The best time to continue to accelerate on success is when you just had success versus maybe celebrating a little too soon, because it can be a grind at times, right? You got to get through the muck, but on that. But you know what time it is, my friend? It's time for our favorite segment. Now we've been getting critiqued because our synchronization is not the same. I will just have you know, this is our way to show you that we are not AI generated and that we keep it real. So we're going to be synced or unsynced, but we are what we are unapologetically. And all right, so ready? Uno, dos, tres. Let's go for quotes and
whips.
whip.
There we go.
All right, better. I'm sure we'll catch some heck from the people who were giving us heck about it in the first place, but that's all I say. Give them the raspberries. All right. So the first one, we always like to start with a quote from the actual book. So this will come from Daniel Pink and his book Drive. Some really good ones on this one, but let me see. Let's pick. I think you may have some feelings about this one. So the quote is, if people feel unfairly treated, they do the minimum. Thoughts on that one?
Isn't right. Well, it's the way you treat people define who you are most of the case, all right? But when you are on the receiving hand, you need to be the better man or the higher person. But it's very hard to do. And I will be transparent. It's very hard for me to do sometimes as well. That's why I love to be an entrepreneur. So I just answer to myself. And when it's great, it's thanks to my team, myself. And when it's not, it's because of me, myself, and I, and nobody else to blame. But I don't like when people are in a corporate environment, when you see people, being promoted and you say, oh, is it even possible?
Yeah.
Like when it's the most micromanagement human being on planet Earth who gets rewarded by a promotion or things like that. And you feel like, I'm happy for the person because everybody are different and you know what, I'm not living in their shoes. I don't pay their bills. But it makes you feel a certain way about why that person and not me, when number wise, way better. When mindset wise, way better. Real leadership compared to management or managerial mindset. And you feel frustrated. You cannot stuck in that frustration for forever. And I have a very strong nonverbal, as you and everybody in Planet Earth who know me know. But I really work on that more. My nonverbal will always be there, but I work on that more to be able to, you vent one time, I thank you, I call you, or I ping you, or text you, and
Or you get some memes.
yeah, and then I get over it a lot faster. I'm not saying I don't think about it from time to time, but I get over it faster. So the quote is accurate. Like you will ask yourself, why did I do everything that I did the last quarter to 6 months, year? Why did I put myself in those situations to improve like your region, or even improve your organization, your business? Why did I do all of that? To not have the reward that I should have, while other people that do the strict minimum but are maybe lucky with a specific sale or like with a huge contract coming in, they get all the benefits while they didn't do, they did the minimum. And that's frustrating to a different level. So what you can have from people, they said, I'm done. You know what? I'm going to be doing the strict minimum from now on because that's not going to change anything at the end of the day. So why would I break my head and do overtime and work on improving something if the reward is not coming? So as a leader, you need to be very conscious about who is doing what, and not only looking at the end number, that how much sale has been done this year, because the way that the sale has been gets there is also very important. Maybe they're building for a better future for the company or for the business, and so those things matter. And I know while I'm talking, I'm thinking about, you probably have even more of those experiences in your life. I know you do. And so I just absolutely agree with the quote, but try to be the better man and try to focus more about your own journey instead of focusing on what other people think about your journey.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well said. Two things came to mind, and then as you were chatting, a third thing came to mind. Two things came to mind when I first read this quote. One is the movie Office Space. I know some of our listeners, this movie was before their time. It's fantastic. And, so the long and short of it is this guy gets hypnotized, goes to work, and he's unvarnishedly honest. And there's these outside consultants coming in to try to figure out how they can improve the business. And they sit down with him and he just unloads on them in a very calm and level way, but he's just very honest. And basically, he's like, you know what? I have 8 different bosses. If I make one mistake, I got to hear about it 8 different times. I have all these different TPS reports to submit. And he goes, so at the end of the day, and I don't get anything. If the company makes more money, I don't get anything added out of it. He goes, so you know what that makes me feel? Just do just enough so I don't get fired. And they're like, oh, but that's what went through my head with that quote, because like if you treat people unfairly, they're just going to hang on until they can find something better. And you're going to get the bare minimum. You're not probably going to get their optimal productivity. And the second thing that came to mind was engagement, right? Like if you have a highly engaged team, they go to bat to one another. And this, actually, I'm going to digress for a second because I got in a conversation with somebody about this not too long ago. And they were talking about separating personal from business. And I'm like, I don't really believe in that. Like, I believe when you have a well-connected team and you build a relationship, no, I'm not saying it's got to be a robust friendship or anything like that, but you just move it beyond a transactional kind of business relationship. They'll go the extra mile for one another, and they will do some things they might not otherwise do because you have a social connection, a social contract with the team. And that's just my philosophy. Now I understand from an HR perspective, there are things you have to be careful about with that, of course. But to me, I would rather have a highly connected team than a band of mercenaries on that one. And I think you get far more engagement and out of it. And then the third thing, like as you're chatting, it made me think about times where I felt I was treated unfairly. And to your point, you try to rise above, right? Because you're getting paid to do what you do, or you're building a business and you have a vision, and one client who treats you unfairly, there's a lot of clients that treat you well. So it's what you focus on, but it's human nature, right? Like all the things that you do above and beyond what the role requires, if you don't feel that gets acknowledged or treated fairly, or somebody else, like to your point in their example, is reaping rewards when they haven't contributed as much, it's going to affect motivation for many people. That's just the human nature and things like that. So we'll talk more about it, but you were touching on some things in your answer around what Dan Pink talks about with autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and how that can fuel motivation. So we can dive a little bit more into that, but well said. Well said. All right. So the quip. So this one comes from Peter Drucker. I'm kind of surprised and not surprised because Peter Drucker is a well-known management strategist, passed away not too long ago, but we've ended up having a lot of quotes from Peter Drucker on our podcast over the time. Really had some interesting things to say. So the quip is, I think this one's going to trigger you a little bit in a good way. Nothing is less productive than making more efficient what should not be done in the first place.
Yeah. Well,
here we go.
By trying to make everything perfect, you try to find ways to optimize everybody's time in your business or the company that you work for. And you try to find a way for everything to be automated and everything to be done the same way across every single region, department in your business or in your company. You will trigger people who like what I call KISS. Keep it stupid simple. I believe this is the key for success in business. You don't overcomplicate things that should not be overcomplicated. You think about innovation, you try things in a small scale before going larger, but you don't try to fix something that doesn't need fixing. In a perfect world, I agree. I would love also to have the best automation for each step in what I need to do during the course of a day. It's not realistic. And by trying to get there, you actually spend so much time doing things that doesn't actually move the needle in what needs to be moved. And you are spending so much time and energy in things that you should not. And some business or some company are more than other. They just want to always innovate with something new about the little detail about everything. So you are pulled in a million different directions. If you are not a great leader, if you are a manager, you will share all those the detail with your teams, and it will trigger a lot of anxiety and burnout from things they don't even work on, because of it's overwhelming to hear about new things coming up all the time to improve. I'm pretty sure that the mentality is I mean, that was done the right way. I mean, that was done the right. The thought was right. Like, okay, it's true that if we do that, it's going to be better. But please stop trying to create noise when it's not needed, and try to do something on a small scale first before you just share that with every single person. I try to. For myself, I always tell myself I'm very transparent. But not with things that I don't believe will get anywhere. I tend to not share that with the people that work with me. I'm like, not because I want to hide it, but because it's not going to go anywhere anyway. And so why am I going to feel something in your head that they will think about it instead of thinking about clients, instead of thinking about coaching? I want them to think about the right thing. And if something comes to first fruition and something I feel like, oh my God, we have something, then of course I'm going to share completely, because I want them to use it because it works. But until then, stop, please. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I knew this would get you going. I read it, I'm like, ooh, he's going to be on fire and well said and on point. I'm going to take a similar but slightly nuanced approach. But when I read this, I immediately went into thinking about elimination. So like when what Peter Drucker, how I was interpreting it is, he's like, people spend time to try to optimize something, but it's not even something we should be doing in the first place. So it's kind of like what you're saying about, hey, if it's working, just leave it. But where I was going with it is, why do we even have it in the first place? Do you even really need to have it? Could you just eliminate it? Because we've talked about this in the past. The simplification is difficult. It sounds easy, but the world is designed, especially sometimes in corporate America, to be very complex, right? And I think people who separate themselves are able to take complex situations and simplify them. Well, you can do the same as you're looking at it from a process perspective, right? Like if you have X amount of steps in the process, yeah, you can make certain things more efficient, but is that even the right process? Or are some of those steps even really needed? Is it just creating waste in the system? And so eliminating it. And I was kind of thinking a little bit, I got in a conversation with somebody recently. This guy was a graduate of Harvard, smart dude. And he was asking about my opinion. So this is just my opinion. It's not representative of anybody I may be affiliated with, but he was talking about technology and AI in particular. And, when do you incorporate it? And you kind of touched on it in your answer as well. And I said, well, my fundamental belief is, if your processes or systems aren't well-defined or clear, or the foundation isn't strong, when you layer technology on top of it, all you're doing is exponentially driving chaos because you never got the foundation right. You never got the steps streamlined to begin with. And if you do spend that time on the front end and then you layer technology on it, now you're creating momentum based on efficiency, right? And that's where you can automate things that are more menial or that are standardized across the board that should, you don't need human thought or judgment and that. So it was a fun conversation. He's like, yeah, he goes, everybody's always talking about like tech, and let's layer tech, but they're layering tech on top of chaos, and all it's doing is fostering more chaos because they never did the legwork on the front end and get the process streamlined to go.
Absolutely. I love that. And I always say the same thing. Technology and AI, more in particular these days, it's amazing to accelerate, but you need to have like you said, the foundation done properly. Then the acceleration will be through the roof by using AI or some type of technology. Right. But if you don't, you're going to accelerate BS.
Yeah, 100%. No, you're absolutely right. And but that's a critical step that a lot of people miss. They get seduced by the sexy thing. And it's like, hey, we can automate. Hey, we can technology. Hey, we can, leverage this instead of more humans and stuff. And it's like, but your stuff is broken.
I know. Like and what I mentioned earlier, I want to say another word about that. When I mentioned earlier about the automation for everybody to do the same thing. So I own a travel agency. I know the qualities, the high quality of some of the agent I have. Why would I could replicate what they're doing as training for everybody else. And I'm all about sharing best practices. Best practice is great to hear. What I don't want is to create robots. And I think that's definitely in leadership. So when I'm leading people, or I'm leading leaders, in this case, I want my leader to be their own mind and have their own way to handle things. They will hear about the best practice from all the successful people that we have. But I don't want to make it mandatory. Hey, they use this, you use this. They do this, they do this. They talk like this, you talk like this. No, you do your own way. I want you to have the freedom to come up with something as a person that can elevate whatever you have to elevate. And then if you continue to be stuck, then that's where the implementation will be more forthcoming. Like I would say, listen, do this now, but I want to give the person the leeway to actually do something based on what they believe is the best thing to do. And so many times those businesses, those organizations, they just said, oh my God, this worked well there. Let's make sure that everybody are using what they do. But it's not how it works. And that's where AI will take over positions. Because if you do that, you can tell AI to do it. But if you lose the personal spies that those people put over their teams, you will lose what actually AI cannot do. And so don't make us robots, because then AI will take our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And this may be a future episode. I came across a quote from Jeff Bezos, and he was talking about how AI is a horizontal amplifier, not a vertical. So maybe we'll do that as a future episode, because it touches on what you're talking about, and also the opportunity for organizations to redesign how to provide services and things like that in the future. So maybe we'll touch on that, because we have a few minutes and we got to do Mr. Pink the justice of talking about his book Drive. So I'm going to give a real quick summary before we go into it, and Nick and I wrap up the last 5 minutes or so on this book. He also has a TED Talk. It's one of the top 10 or top 20 TED Talks of all time. Talked about it's called The Theory of Motivation. So if you don't want to read a book, or you don't want to listen to audiobook, you can get the gist of it from his TED Talk. But basically what Pink is talking about is, historically, organizations, whether you're self-employed, got a small business, or you are working in a corporate environment, you have the carrot and stick kind of mentality, right? So you dangle the carrot as some sort of incentive. Maybe it's an extra spiff, extra commission, a little extra bonus, you get some time off, whatever it is. But there's some sort of reward system in place to basically do what you're meant to do, but they're trying to get you to do a little bit more, right? And then you have the stick, which we're probably all familiar with, where people like the thou shalt and you better do this or else type of thing. And what Dan talks about, going back to what we mentioned earlier, is the best way to foster intrinsic motivation, where people feel inspired to do great work on their own without some arbitrary incentive, is through autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And so the first one, and this goes into what you were talking about, and actually one of our more recent sessions on a podcast we did that got a lot of traction when we talked about micromanagement. And the autonomy is, it's natural. People have the desire to direct their own lives. So it's good to understand the roadmap. It's good to understand what are the expectations and things like that. But when you're pushing somebody under your thumb all the time and micromanaging, and we talked about this before a few weeks ago, what you're signaling is, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't believe in you. I don't believe you're capable unless I'm browbeating you to do that. And most people do not thrive under those environments. And in fact, it causes their motivation to suffer. So I know we talked about that. I don't want to spend up too much time on that, but I'd love to get your thoughts on the second piece where he talks about mastery, right? Because I know you and I have talked a lot about that, with the fundamentals and things like that. And basically what Dan Pink is talking about, can you align people so that they have that urge to get better at something that really matters? So when you think about building mastery, given all the different things you're doing or how you're leading teams, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so that's a good point, because too many times in those days, you have people trying to be good at everything. And you and I are the same way about that as well. We said, instead of focusing on being average in everything, focus to be master in one thing. Like it's so much more powerful. Now, how to get there? Because I can say, I want to be the master of data. I will never become a master of data. Why? Because I don't have the passion about data. I use data. I think it's good, but I'm not like drawn by data. I'm drawn by seeing people going from where they are to when they have the potential to be. That's what drawn me. But everybody have different one. So you need to see, what are you passionate about? What are you already doing at a very good level? And instead of saying like, I'm already great at that or very good at that, let me try this now. Now let's focus on that portion. So I'm great at that. How can I get greater? And then if you continue to do so, you will be mastering something. And mastering something that was going to differentiate yourself to others, because you have something that others don't. And so I know that when I was working under you, I know that you were always very high on this. Like, Nick, you're great at that. What about people, about this? Just what can you do to improve that even more? And I always stuck with me, instead of like, oh, why you didn't tell me about the thing that I'm not very good at or not good at all at. He said, no, do great at this. And that's how your brand is going to be defined with, instead of doing this. So I would encourage everyone, and that's what I do now with the people I work with. I always try to say, like in Dream Vacation, to take that example, I have someone who is extremely good with Disney. Disney selling, like everything, land and cruising. Well, yes, you can. I want you to know how to sell everything, but how can you differentiate yourself and be the expert of Disney? So there is a 24 hours training that you can do online. There's so much stuff that you can do. You can go to Disney in a one-on-one training with the business development manager. You can do so much stuff in order to improve and become like, if someone has Disney, this person knows 100% of it. And so that's the direction I want to go in what I'm doing, because I believe in mastery more than in average in everything.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, and I think well said on that. And like you mentioned, I'm a big believer in focus on augmenting your strengths to get much more exponential benefit out of it. And then the last thing, just to kind of to close out here, was purpose. Desire to do what we do in the service of something bigger. So this is what, for those who know, I'm a big fan of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's the same concept of what he talks about, the nobler motive, like appealing to somebody. Because we all want to do well for ourselves, right? But when they feel they contribute to something bigger, and I'll just tell a super quick story. I took over a group a number of years ago in my current organization that typically had a very entry-level profile, like somebody who was maybe a year or two from university getting into the role, and their job was to onboard our new clients to make sure that they were enabled and equipped with all the aspects of the membership, got the fundamentals of it. When I joined, the morale was really low. Like they felt like there was a lot of pushback and they didn't get a lot of support and things like that. And one of the things that I did was to articulate to them, based on a very in-depth analysis, that when they did what they were supposed to do in onboarding our new clients, it had a halo effect and actually drove 7 points of retention. And so what I did is I got one of those big giant game show checks made, and I put a dollar figure in there that added retention equated to, and I handed it in front of everybody into the operating committee leader who led all of our group. And they just loved that, because now there was a visual and they could see that not only what their impact was, but how it contributed to making things easier for our sellers and easier for our service professionals, and ultimately easier for our clients to get off to a fast start and engaging with their membership and ultimately retain. So again, trying to get people to align with what they do is not only important, but how it contributes to something larger is also very motivating as well. So any quick thoughts on this one before we wrap up?
No, I think you summarized very well. And I didn't know the story about the I will ask you more offline, because it's interesting what you did. You always have a way to bring things simple, visual, and to make a huge difference in a group that were very down at the time. So good job.
Yeah. I used to watch game shows a lot as a kid. I always wanted to hold one of those giant game show checks. So I'm like, here's my chance. I'll find a reason to do that. But it was fun. It'll be. I was trying to make an impression. So anyway, for again, highly recommend Daniel Pink's book Drive. Check out his TED Talk as well if you want us to dive deeper into this book or the elements he talks about in a future episode. Please let us know. But at the end of the day, if you take nothing away from this episode, don't use a carrot and stick. Find ways to intrinsically inspire your people, creating environments where they want to do their best work, and you will watch the results compound positively, I promise you. So with that, winners, that'll wrap up today's episode. Again, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow 2 for the Win on your favorite platform. And shout out to Nick Menard and nickmenard.com, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, The 1% Push Legacy, for sponsoring today's episode. We'll see you next Monday, winners.